Hi, Gary Erickson here. This is for Professor Sherry McKay, my thesis committee member and professor. It's been since 1994. I thought I'd get this together for you. I have a little time to put it together. I have saved all my video clips, my material for my ancient thesis. I know you're not supposed to ever bring it up again. You know this thing right here? Is that right side? No, no. Oh, it's upside down. That's it. You know this thing? Oh, well. Well, I had a lot of extra stuff that never hit the stacks, but I thought I'd put it together for you. And I do need some video material for my YouTube channel. I don't know if you'd mind if I actually posted it in some form or edited it. I'm always looking for new material to post in the design section. So what do you think? I've got a couple little pieces of it here for you. If you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see it there. Just the model alone, which is probably not controversial. But I do have all our committee meetings, and you can barely make it out who we are and what we said, but it is there. So I put it together for you in a 3-hour-long scrollable YouTube video on private settings. So no one has access to it unless you send them the link. I'd like to put it on public, but it's totally up to you and the committee members that are left whether or not they want to see this kind of broadcasted out there. I think it's kind of interesting. That's my point of view. So tell me what you think, okay? Thanks. As for me, I have a small practice here in Toronto on the street level. Maybe I'll show this clip. Yeah, this is how I get around. This is my front door. This is my little practice. I've been here for about 10 years doing my thing. Before that, I just worked around the world doing different projects. If you want to know more, there's lots of coverage on my channel about that. So that's my situation at the moment. As for YouTube, I just started this channel a week or two ago. I'm looking for publicity. I'm looking for work. I'm looking for a better market position. And besides a very slow process of referrals, I mean really slow, and the slow process of building things takes sometimes years, decades to build one project, I'd like to have a little more exposure. These videos really help. And they coordinate with all my other social media, Google Ads, website, all together now in one package. This would help me a lot. So tell me what you think. And tell me if there's any other things going on at UBC that I need to know about, maybe even have to do with architects starting YouTube channels. I don't know. Seems to be a thing today. So thanks for listening, and if you need to, you can scroll through 3 hours of committee meetings and models and all that stuff we did back in the day. And it'd be fun to see our professors in the back in the way they were in 1994. I think anyway. So thanks.
Movie star one day because he did this, you know, counting my tip. Movie? Yeah, right. 4, 6, 8, 10, 6, 8, 25, and 3/4 $1. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That? That's the automotive, that's your site right there.
Let's zoom in there. It's amazing, you know, these cameras. Talk about saving me time.
And then you have to sort of fragment it. Here's an example. Here's 50 foot in the middle of that block.
Yeah, an info action.
Which it can't achieve 5 FSR residential. It's limited to 3 now, but could physically build 3 in a mid-block site like that. given your parking access and ramps and everything.
Wow, this is pretty good. Well, those are the parks. And it's obvious that Central Park is going to be the new center of the new neighborhood.
The original goal was to achieve something in the order of 2 full blocks of parks to serve that. If that downtown south area in the red or orange was developed to its maximum potential residential, to meet anywhere near the usual park standards for a neighborhood, we should require something in the order of 2 full blocks. We recognize economically that's just not, it's not in the cards.
So you really see the pace of development of that new neighborhood is going to be quite slow in contrast to the scope of the zone.
That other map that you originally filmed, it has something in the order of 26 projects in the last 3 years. And our original growth projections were by 2015 we'd have what we call almost full build out, to require 2 major projects a year, which we have been achieving to date, and somewhat in excess of that. Obviously built, and this is
So could you put a finger on my site in there so we all know what the context is now? Because that's quite a new city you're building.
in there.
Yeah.
Isn't that oh, sorry, maybe it's not.
That looks like it, doesn't it? With the
That's 3, it's right. Oh, it's right in there. No, sorry, it's right there. That's that little building across the street from you.
well, that's good. So you say that this really is a good idea of what's going through, except for the development on the left.
That's highly theoretical right now. This is fairly typical of what this has been approved. This is fairly consistent with what will be approved. Canucks Arena replaces this piece up in here. This is somewhat theoretical. The rest of it is fairly consistent with what will be approved or has been approved.
mean, Mary Cobb handles this operator very well, so that wasn't a problem. I'm afraid I didn't see your note, and I'm wandering around for that number.
Say, oh, Mr. McLeod sees it.
Right. He may not either. I mean, it wasn't real visible. I first went to 301, and so did I. I did the same thing, and then I went all the way back to Westmoreland. And then I looked at 309. I didn't see the sign at first because it was so dark down there. I just saw people in the room, and I knew it wasn't the right place. So then I went upstairs, and Ray said, "Well, we've got a note on the door." So then I went down and looked.
Hey,
I'm afraid I have to leave at 6.
That's 2 out of 4. 3. Oh, 3. Yep.
So get to the point. Get to the point.
Just do it all at some time. You always have to, right? Yes.
Oh, this you got the whole. Oh no, I have that. Oh, do you have that?
I'm not taking minutes, by the way. I just said I'm trying to look at it. I probably may have gotten things mixed up. I just said 5 minutes.
I know the clue is the both.
Oh,
There's a single name there.
No, I read one of the same. I've always had. I was very good at spelling with grade 3. It used to be a thing with spelling bees almost something.
No, the words get bigger. I was terrible. No, I was spelling champion at PS9.
You were? Oh my. Yeah.
But then I realized that you were actually supposed to study how the words were spelled. I always thought they were just supposed to know innately how to spell. As soon as I figured out that those little spellers you're supposed to take a home and study, then I was fine. I always thought it was boring. Yeah.
I've always favored personal life.
So now I'm actually very good. There's no word. Just curious, you got right. Sure, it'll be. No, it's okay.
No. The red pen is there. Scratch. Yeah, I think I got lucky with research.
It doesn't work. Because both my examples are ocular centric.
This one probably is.
For the situations where they would do with anyone who designed anything to kick them out.
Understood. I mean, they were good at kicking things out.
That'd be the most. I think he ended up in the main two group. One was up 7, the other was up 5.
Really? 7 and 5.
Oh, I can't remember. I did a little paper on it for my first paperback. It's called Theoretical Paper on the Situation as a Unitary Urbanism and by choice.
Well, I gotta go look for it.
Okay. It's probably one of the best written papers I've ever done. It's like I wrote it and it wasn't right, so I, in the middle of the night I thought this how it has to be on in the morning. And I did it in 3 books. It only had to be 12 pages, 10 pages. Oh, it's fear. And then it broke it out. I can think it's on the computer. I can give the pen and the other one if I have to.
No, you see here maybe basically on the common element because since everyone's leaving at 6, we've got half an hour. Let's see how little I can do on one of these things. I have a design, model drawings. Party and as you see, brief. Okay. Before we get into that, I'd like to discuss the timing of the project. I don't really understand substantial completion and why everyone's so anxious about it all. What is it and how do I address it?
Well, that's what the book says. You look it up what the book says.
Well, I know
We go by the book.
I'd like to go.
Yeah. Well, this is really inspired by the tradition of the school, which is formalized by under in the book, right? It's a regulation. So you have to get substantial completion to proceed to do the final examination. So it is an informal examination in a sense.
Formal exam?
Informal exam, I think. That's not exam. But if you don't complete this stage, you don't go for final exam.
Okay, well, there's a last date and everything.
The idea of the substantial completion is that the design is worked out, and basically after that date, all you have to do is
There's a
presentation drawing.
But
Sometimes that's fudge.
yeah, but that's also not always possible. This comes from the era where people believe that design and presentation are two separate things. I mean, sometimes they have a firmly grounded project, and then they start delineating it and presenting it, and actually it turns into totally something else. But I guess it's a consensus of the committee that thinks it's going the right way and go public. This is what I see.
Going public, anyways.
I mean, and with all my few students I had, there was always certain agenda which they had to address in substantial. Well, that's all fine, but do this, and this. So it was never, like called project finished, which you can commission.
Oh,
3 guys to
yeah.
cast and draw.
I don't think I can do the project like that.
Actually, it amazed me last term. A few of your students were right up to the deadline. They were designing balconies and handrails and making big images, and they almost sort of said, "Wow, it's good enough because that's what I have." The day before the end, and I better think about what I'm going to say, because I'm going to go up tomorrow. So that seemed to be the way it worked for people I knew anyway. Is there a reason why you should, let's say, for example, could I apply for it now? I mean, maybe ludicrous, but too early, too late, and what would it give me? Would it give me like 2 months to do the preparation for the presentation, which would be really nice? Or would it, since it doesn't really mean anything?
No, I don't think we said that. I think it's a threshold for us to look at it, to scrutinize it.
Okay, so it's approval.
Oh, I think that is a threshold. I mean, that's a condition of this.
Okay. So you need everyone's to vote on it? It's like a jury.
We ask you out of the room and you tell me
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to be looking at quality, quantity, and
No, we're going to look at your project basically.
Yeah.
And you present it reasonably coherently and completely, right? Though we'll be familiar with all of it by then.
yeah, that's right.
I guess that's what we do, right? And then you have a talk, we won't give you any comment, we ask you everyone, we discuss what to do with you, and then maybe at the end of the day after deciding what to do with that, we'll suggest things to things.
I see. Okay. Because there is a last date for meetings, the 8th of April.
Certainly you can go earlier if you like.
Yeah, like I think Tuesday's rumors, Pat saying, "Oh, by beginning of March, we're ready to go," and all that because we've got only so many weeks to present. I think sounds good.
I don't know. I mean, some
That's a
people,
rumor.
there were several cases people went to a substantial and committee felt that, the guy has to go do a little bit more work and come back in for substantial. I've seen it happen.
Okay. It's interesting because you get to present. I mean, in a formal
You're
way.
eating up into 30 minutes with some kind of
Okay, well, let's
stuff. Let's
start.
move to your program.
Yeah.
So
Still not quick.
that's on the 8th, and you see, we could design forever, right? I mean, it's just not a finalized thing. Usually, you can get really into almost infinite detail and angst about everything, or you can just go for it. I mean, to me, it's sort of subjective. I like to start with a full set of drawings and walk right away, and just change it, you know, as I feel
Tell
like.
us about this book.
Okay, well, I did some research and out to New Jersey, which is like a synopsis of a little fantasies about last week, and some research I did in the interim, trying to sort of concretize the brief and give it some substance. I asked Sherry for some books, basically on the Situationist, to try and help look at contemporary architecture and contemporary architectural issues. And I'd just like to pull up one image that struck me as interesting, and this is it. Okay, this is an artist I was sort of in the back of my mind all the time that I'd seen it, just thought I really didn't really know that much about it. But I became familiar. I have slides on that, and I'll show you this next time. It's Matt Clark, and a Situationist, anarchist, architect, deconstructivist worker, whatever he's been called. And interesting because of the spatial penetration going through and a kind of attitude toward what's called Tourmont, correct? Tourmont, that's the major concept of Situationists. And looking at the whole basis of the essence of your class and on the institutional end, the idea of detourment or detouring of the meaning or contagion of the meaning or a way of dealing with institutionalization through that kind of approach seemed to be the most solid approach I could assume. And I sort of had it back in my mind that I need something to do with this institutional issue. I mean, from the beginning of your class, I better get this institution thing down. Not only what it means, but what it doesn't mean. And I had this in mind. I sort of just started designing with it in mind, and I sort of filled in the cracks as I went and did some reading, especially looking at people like, let's say, Eisenman, who has his approach to institutions, and how he tries to make another text appear within the work, which doesn't necessarily have to do with architectural texts or very strong means. So that out of the way now, gets the design.
Take us through the text.
The text coming up. The architectural text. And then there's that other text, the two texts, right? I think you've all probably heard this already 100 times, right?
The two texts?
Yes. Okay, now I'm sort of, at the moment, somewhat unsure about these other texts that they keep talking about and how they could become very strong meanings. But I took the Situationist at word and thought about detourment and Derrida in terms of detourment, which is like making holes through the structure, okay, in non-orthogonal ways. And a lot of that had to do with the effect of earthquakes and of destroying the grid and all these things, which are very commonsensical when you're talking about determinant, I think. And then there's Derrida, that's drifting through the site, as a wanderer would go, not along the necessary paths of urban planning. Okay, and the two concepts together affecting the institution of the museum and the functions that I've managed to put in this box. Okay.
So détournement has to do also with, and it relates to your idea of function, the idea of taking a function and turning its use, so the appropriation.
It's almost like it affects almost anything. In that article from Situations to Simulations, they took the concept of detournement and explained almost every 20th century art movement, all the way up to
Yeah,
the
but I mean, that's not situations, this is much later revision stuff.
Okay, like I'm not trying to be a situationist. I think that may, like Sirch would say, that's a spoon. A spoon being something that's created for the moment under pressures of the moment, which you may not be able to assume in the present. I'm not assuming that I would be a situationist, but I'm saying some of those approaches may be interesting in looking at institutionalization and contemporary context. Behind you is a series of models, which are, I roughed out a poem and represented the massing of the project, and I took arbitrary swipes at them, trying to release some sort of massing. Knowing already I've been through the program maybe once or twice or variations.
What do you mean by arbitrary?
Arbitrary. Well, arbitrary is my main word for this project, by the way.
What do you mean by arbitrary?
Arbitrary is
How do you determine something to be arbitrary?
well, what is arbitrary is what is not necessary. Like there's a famous quote that in the design of a boiler, the color of the boiler isn't necessary. Okay, the color of the boiler is just simply applied to the surface as a decoration, and it's an arbitrary color. Okay, so it's basically contrasted with what it isn't, and that's necessary. Okay, I think decorations would be seen as arbitrary because they're not necessary to the function of the thing that you're describing. Anyways, that's how they describe it in that article. The dislocation of the postmark itself. Anyways, here's the arbitrary punks. cut it out of this simple massing. I mean, this project is nice because it's just such a simple massing. You extrude it up 5 stories and you take 2 bays, you get 2 slabs of foam. And you grid it up with a 6-meter grid that sometimes looks like a structure. You can intuit ideas out of them. I thought, well, how many ways can I carve out a piece of this half and maybe affect the other half? Because I had a sense that this would be the solid part and this would be the liquid part. This would be the hard institutional core and this would be the softer, more pliable behavioral piece. So this is a corner taken out, this is a chunk taken out. I'm looking for open space, by the way, because that's basically the gist here. Here's an open space along the bottom. Here's an open space along the side, sort of chunking in this way. Here's an open space. These are like progressed in like this, coming at an angle. And finally, this one, which I actually had a friend of mine help me decide on because I was so confused with these options. I couldn't see realizable floor plates with a lot of these. They didn't really work. This would be atrocious because you have, a core with 2 means of egress and you have to this would be silly having one over here and over here. So somehow it always ended up being cut in the middle so it could have floor plates on either side. So there were functions that had to be addressed in cutting space out of the thing. So eventually a friend of mine went like this and he saw this and went, well, that's much better. And I said, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll retain the rigidity of format on the ends, and the center I'll think about something that drifts through and takes away the mass of the building, and especially open it to a view of the corner. I mean, the intersection is what this thing's about, right? And view through the intersection is interesting because it's against the grid of the city, but it's the most common view of the actual project as you're walking along. Views and drifts seem to be related that way because they're off angle. So here's the model. And there's the chunk taking in the center. You can see it in the way you can address the project, this tangential view cuts up the side and then into it. In that view anyway. So when I did the model, I started addressing the other views and how it actually could corrupt or corrode the actual institutional, very rigid and restrictive grid of the project, having almost no real usable space sometimes within itself. It's really difficult to somehow distort. But by cheating on the setback for the balconies, I managed to kind of like introduce a sense of cleavage in the 2 masses so that they shift around each other to a certain extent. And then, of course, there's always the beautiful earthquake bracing to help, which is half part decorative and part functional. But I want to look at the right. There's the domino concept by Corb. I think I've already showed this to you. On the very far right, you recognize the domino house. And right next to it, I have what I call earthquake domino, which is steel braced flat concrete plates. And I passed this through Steve Taylor. I thought this was a great idea. This would be a really interesting way to address earthquake bracing without interfering with the actual functions inside and adding tectonic elements to the outside. And he gave me certain guidelines to actually apply these bracings to the outside. So I thought, this is good. And I had, in a sense, that I constructed this model when I thought of these things. What am I doing?
Okay.
Okay? So these are plans, okay? And what I did was, of course, I extruded the box, I drew its envelope, and I tried different kinds of sectional approaches because there's a grade change from the plane to the street. At one time I had a shifted up section which made 2 actual usable spaces off the street, and that just was a dive because it came off flat on the back, and I wasted a lot of time looking at that option. But then I finally eroded this section, which really I think works very well. It comes off the lane, there's a platform here, and then the actual flat part addresses a part of the slope site that's just in the center of the site. And in the front, you have the opportunity to have steps in the front, which I think is an important typological model for a museum. That would be part of the necessary text, right? The architectural text, those stairs that you see in so many museums. And these are the stairs I'm talking about here, up on Main Street. And that sense of entrance that comes in, and the wall which sort of privatizes that view. The actual grade relationships with the slab are here in the very center, where the opening comes to the ground. In my first design, I thought that I would just simply look at it and close the space and see what I could do. So I went all the way up and I tried functions. And the second one, it just struck me that I wasn't being aggressive enough about functions. And there were things that Jersey was saying about installations and live installations, and also things about people in the street and about concepts of security and privacy that the museum has problems with. Um, I was reading something about Daniel Burns' plaza in Paris where he does a postmodern relief on the ground and he has this institutional background, and people supposedly like to drift and sort of loiter in there is the word. I thought this was a really interesting idea, loitering the ground floor of an institution when you're not supposed to do that. So I took the walls away from the whole thing. I had it completely open and left the display case, a little bookstore or some commercial function to retain the format of the street. And I kind of created a concrete little reception desk that you could drag around, but is completely urbanically proof, urban proof. Okay. So I was thinking of this as a very large open space at first, and columns would come to the ground, but it would really still retain the fact that you could drift through this thing and come out to the street, and you would have to be able to play with the function that way, and be a little more open to urban issues like these private bathrooms became public bathrooms, which I thought was really interesting because public bathrooms are always such a crisis in the city, especially if you have to go. And these would be public bathrooms, but I thought that it would be good to have grills on the back, grills you could pull up and down to make them private or public, depending on whether you really wanted to risk having a public bathroom in this area or not, depending on the situation. So here's a section to that area, and what you have is steel rails which come from this loading dock in the background, and you can transport your installation. Trying lots of slides, but of course not look at those. And you can place them anywhere you want on the floor plate by these two rails, which come all the way up to the front and signify the entrance of the project to the street. Hi, Graham. So that was my feelings about the first ground floor, the most important floor for the project and for the museum. I wanted to basically keep the code of the museum, which is the wall and the stairs, but gut all the rest of the functions and leave it open for some sort of installational practice.
Okay. Can we ask questions?
Well, okay, 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes.
Okay.
Let's keep it all going, and we're going to be alone with this project.
Okay, just a brief question about ground floor. If I understood that this is one surface here. This is all one surface. Right?
Okay, there's a platform here. The model's a little easier to see, actually. There's a platform there, you see it? And it's a lane relationships. You can drive in, unload your stuff, and have it transported down. But there is a drop.
Wouldn't you like to bring almost the same texture inside, or the same texture out? Would you like to bring white?
I was at first thinking, why
is there's a magic line here? Why the grid doesn't work?
Well, I know. Well, actually, that's my next thought. I'll ask you about that. What about making this whole thing like a park?
Like a park assembly. I think it's very
and it's really breaking this property line issue and making the planter part of the whole place.
Okay,
That's you can install things within a landscape, which is of course a forgotten part of
Let's go up.
landscape. You want to go up? Let's go down. Because down's more interesting than up.
Okay.
Up, of course, what I did was then I started taking this block site, 5-story thing. I looked at the codes and I looked at this interpenetrated space problem. Okay, but Graham just happened at the right time. And it seems that over 5 stories you need 2-hour rating, under 5 stories you need a 1-hour rating. And that's okay because I can only get this many floors and 70 floors to 70 feet, which is the height limit of the project. As for the number of floors and the height of the building, I asked Steve Taylor and Ray Cole about sustainability, which I thought was a really important issue in terms of downtown construction. I sort of saw this as sort of a prototypical building commodity in a new area, and I was thinking, well, should I build the height limit, and should I do all that? Why don't I just maybe build something small and add to it? And well, Steve Taylor said, forget it, this is a ridiculous assumption. Build the whole thing and then rent it or use it plastically for however long the project's going to last. And then I asked Mr. Carter about how long a building should last today. He told me 1,000 years. Okay, he thought the concrete should last 1,000 years, and then that fabric should be almost completely permanent. Well, he says with 200 millimeter cover.
Unless it's stainless steel or something.
He said with 200 millimeter cover, you could do it. I went, you gotta be kidding. He goes, yeah, with 8 inches of cover, you could make the core last for a millennium. So I went, well, this really changes the meaning of context completely. Because none of this is going to exist in 50 years. This building's going to be gone, and these buildings are going to be gone. Well, maybe this will become a whole museum in itself in 100 years, but this thing's got to last 1,000 years and 10 earthquakes. Well, this really is really interesting because it changes the nature of context completely. And I kind of took that on as a very good idea.
So say again, which part is going to last 1,000 years?
Okay, concrete, supposedly, generally speaking,
Not
lasts
everything.
1,000 years.
Those things are going
Now
to
this
collapse.
piece here,
the first thing.
well, sag.
Glass will go. You know.
Well, certainly not the outside. Remember at the first week we looked at this prototypical model, and I said, this is the way I sort of see the project. The core and the foundations would be 1,000 years. This would be, well, with sagging, right? I mean, this stuff sags.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about 100, maybe 2, and then some sort of sense of replacement.
Yeah, right.
Okay, like I don't know if this is really possible, of course, replacing the floor slabs, but this stuff supposedly. Well, that's what I'm thinking when I was looking at dealing with in 200 years. Somehow concrete's had a test of time pretty well, but the methods and materials, maybe not. And then, of course, the cladding is something which goes quick, right? We understand that. So I sort of lost the seriousness about the cladding. I said, well, look, the cladding is only going to be 1/20th the life of the building.
Right.
And it sort of opens up the idea of changing it and making it more flexible. So I started thinking of a paneling system that was hung from the slab, just like paneling systems usually are. There's a new building down the street which uses a paneling system, which is pretty interesting. And I sort of looked to it for a little inspiration. You've seen this, right? Last time? Same file number. And I think everybody looked at it and says that looks like concrete panels finished to a concrete frame. And it's just designed to look a little load bearing. But what I think I'd like to do is have brick panels, 1 meter wide strips hung from the edge of the frame. And I don't think I want to deal with load bearing. Let's let them float on the surface and deal with the patterns that come out of the uses we want to put in there.
And that's where you just pop out, you know, one at a time.
Well, they do this, right? Like, you know, the problem with panels is they tend to sag when the concrete sags, they split. That's what I'm told anyway. But I'm told if you have a number of them, that you can actually minimize that problem.
They will become the Venetian blind.
Yes, moving slowly in time. And then, of course, you can pop them all off and start over, which is probably the better approach. I was renovation, was director of renovations for Cineplex for 3 years, and I popped a lot of panels on and off buildings and put floor plates in and gutted them and sunk in theater floors. Because in Cineplex we did like, I don't know, we did about 2 theaters a month, and there was incredible problems with renovating parking garages and getting people in and out. And one thing I learned was that functions aren't permanent. Programs are flexible, and Cineplex itself is, you know, the whole commercial enterprise is at risk just by capitalism. But I learned that certain things really are permanent. And I think it's the core and the curve, and the rest of it tends to sort of float through time. It'd be nice to respond to that in a sensible way somehow. Anyway, so what shall I get on with the levels? Ground floor level, open, 2 stairs, means of egress to the street, 1 way direct to the grade, the other way through a prototypical lobby. If you enclose this whole project in a normal use, let's say you made this into a restaurant, put walls on it, you'd still be able to come in the front entrance, have a small lobby, then get to the elevators and into the bathroom, and it would still be a traditional floor plane. But since I did that before I took the walls away, the potential for it was still there. Okay. And the second floor, the two most critical floors are above and below the ground floor, I think.
Yeah.
The second floor is became the more strict interior museum floor where you would have objects and you just write little logos for spatial dimensions of objects. This is like a 6-meter distance that I would consider a maximum, and usually the observation distance is from a flat object and then from a 3-dimensional object in the round. So I sort of put these on the plan and sense what kind of spatial configuration I could have with some sorts of exhibits that I have. Let's say, for example, in front of the window, you have objects in the dark area on these walls. I try to retain.
Does the circle signify your viewing radius?
Yes, viewing radius around an object.
Around the object.
The sense of how
the object is a little square, right?
That's right, a little square. These are the objects and their possible positions in the spaces, and these triangles are possible viewing cones. You know, that Cartesian viewer, we talked about that. You know, he's in that space, and he's the width of the work away from the wall. As to your comment, I tried to retain that wall character all the way up by fiddling with the doors and exiting until that kind of became really commodious. Okay, so that's the museum floor plate. And as you go down, which I consider kind of very interesting when you go down, I always wanted to find a way of putting some sort of social machine within the building, which was how would you say, alternative, okay? And the basement has always been the place for me that all the alternative functions go. And I've been actually in quite a few basement clubs that were really interesting because they always had a sense of sort of a hard street sort of sensation about them, and almost sometimes very intellectually exciting idea. So down here I put a film room, okay, and of course, in Cineplex, I've done a lot of Cineplexes, so a projection booth, and a bar, seating for 100 people, a stage, and a film room, a screen, okay, which this is actually patterned after one in downtown Toronto. It's called the Slater Club. You go down there, and it's an incredible place where they have a jazz cabaret with rock music, and it's incredible. Anyways, it was an incredible size because it just held 100 people, and that's about as many people as you could get together. So I had the sense of the crowd being a manageable size in some way. So anyways, this cut it pretty well. I sort of brought it back to get about 100 in, and then I had enough space for the basement functions, which would be the garbage storage and temporary storage for the museum, mechanical services, which come up this side of the core and go into this panel, which you can actually access nicely enough from above grade. You can take this panel off and change the boilers and the heating equipment. I thought that was a nice plus. And a kitchen, because I thought it would be interesting to have uses that could fluctuate, and if you don't plan for a kitchen and you put one in later, who knows when you want to actually cater these floors or have food services, a restaurant at grade or a restaurant on the second floor, or I don't know what floor, but what I did is put a dumbwaiter in the corner and solidified this kitchen with a skylight over to get some natural light in for the people who work there. Okay. Okay, so that's what I think is interesting about that floor. And in this section, you see the line of sight and projection lines, carefully missing the top of the bartender's head as it goes over the crowd, and sort of a sense of this little projection room and film room below. Around the outside is which is underneath the site, underneath the setback, is the storage for the museum, which I put in here. I think it has to be dark, climate controlled, and sealed tight. It's always interesting to put this around these functions because they tend to be difficult to deal with anyway, but this seems to be a good place to put storage. So I put it there. Let's see now. 3, going up. Then it became interesting, like what kind of stuff in this box? What kind of associations do you have with the functions? So I said, well, what would you want above a museum for? You want a place where people meet, you want some sort of conference facilities. And what I did was, on one side, which I kept as like the major function side, I had a private conference and a lounge space where people could privately talk, something acoustically quiet, which has actually a balcony coming out, so there's a certain urban connection there. And on this side of the atrium space, I put a library conference area with display shelves around the outside, and this space always becomes a little service bay for whatever functions in front of it. Even though it's on the street, it seems to always retain the service quality since this always needed something back there to get service. Now on the 4th floor, which is over here, I put office staff room, a computer center in there because I thought, well, this is a computer and this is a museum, you have staff. Even if you don't have staff, you want to rent this out for staff purposes. So I put minimal offices surrounding a computer center with corridors going all around the outside with access to the atrium, access with the balcony to the outside, and access to the back, which is a 5-foot setback from the lane. In the front, the director's office with a conference facility and some sort of support staff area also looks over and shows people coming in from the elevator and possibly from the stairs. The stairs ended up working pretty good eventually, actually, because on the upper floors, these doors come to the center, and on the ground floor, the doors actually go to grade because it's 6 meters floor to floor instead of 4 meters floor to floor. You get the offset doors, so that kind of worked pretty good. 5, floor number 5, I actually put a residential floor on top. Well, I was part of a Main Streets design competition in Toronto a few years ago, and we, everybody took a look at the idea of densifying main streets because of the sustainable issues involved in maximizing transportation in city life. Everybody was trying to build things on top of buildings, very difficult to do. Putting elevators inside buildings that don't have elevators, another thing very hard to do. Well, this is a great chance. I get to do a 5-star So anyways, I put a residential floor up here, and this makes like a large unit and a small unit, more or less. This becomes washrooms and storage, and this becomes, a kitchen, storage, bathroom side, service bit. And then it becomes a matter of adjusting the services to work with the use spaces, around the outside periphery. And some way of dealing with this strange patio, which is a really nice address to the whole city, eventually, because I sort of ended up continuing the patio out and making it a little roof line with this strange little balcony that comes out to here to view the corner. What was interesting is that you couldn't put a partition between these two houses, and so there's no privacy in the balcony. You can almost see from one to the other. And I still don't know whether I should just toss this whole residential idea, or I should work with the idea that they have a shared facility, and you can sort of see between the two, both living rooms face each other. And of course, on the last bit, I had a hell of a time rationalizing the design of this asymmetrically skewed, complicated openings. I decided I'm going to have to do something simple, so I just made something, and it seemed to be okay. Although it doesn't really rationalize with this cut that goes through the volumes, I'm still sort of working on how I'm going to really make it work, okay? But I like the idea of having residential on the roof, and I kind of think it would be a good idea. I have no idea really what the city would approve it in Vancouver, but in Toronto it's a very simple thing to have residential on the roof, uses below, and all the commodification that goes on between the two. And this is a roof deck, and it's a roof deck. Kind of suspicious about roof decks. I think that nobody uses them; they're just there to make it look better. But maybe they do. I don't know. In the future. So I was thinking, since it's a museum, would be a perfect place to have installations. And when you're in a roof, you're looking over the city. It's a great place for a barbecue. So, anyways, roof deck's simple enough. You just deck it and take your consequences with the section. And you have sheltered spaces on both sides, which is kind of nice, part of the concrete enclosure. These are all the little functions drawn in, and it's sort of interesting seeing the pattern of development. I read not only Marx, but I also read the Art and the Age of Mechanical Reproduction by Benjamin, and he said an interesting idea, talking about seriality, that this aura problem, the idea that objects are both close and at a distance to you, they lose their sense of authenticity. When I was looking at the section, I felt that this was a great example of this lost authenticity, because you had functions at a different level and different, almost like filmic worlds inside each one, and interpenetrated by the space, but somehow the repetition of the floor slabs kind of killed the sense of authenticity about them. They were all replaceable, all strangely kind of disconnected from each other, but connected at the same time. And I kind of like the way the whole sort of allows some sort of strange voyeuristic penetration between the levels, but doesn't really say that, well, these people come down here and talk to them, and that doesn't happen, right? Because each one of these functions is totally financially and institutionally separate from the rest of them, like suburbia almost. And this section, of course, shows some of the ways I might, deal with some of the interior issues, like I was thinking of horizontal divisions of the planes and horizontally stratifying the floors and the partitions, so that there's a grain going this way in the glazing, and a vertical emphasis on the hard parts, okay, the opaque parts of the box. And some urban pictures here, just to finish off, along with my elevations. This is my, there's a couple elevations underneath these elevations, because I kept changing my mind. I'm still changing my mind, and I think this model probably says more about how the latest version is working. I suddenly realized that I could do probably a lot more with this bracing thing than I thought, and that, of course, when you're working in elevation, you tend to lose the other ones. I did lose the corner, so I thought I'd bring it back in, and I took a bit of paint from a friend over there, and I wanted to open up this corner and sort of have the two corners open between the two facades, bracing this together and showing off this diagonal element between. So the paneling system, I'm still working out. It's so flexible, you can sort of play with it forever. One thing about it that's really strange is that it's very disconnected from the other properties, not only by this concrete tower, but by the actual pattern of the fenestration. And when I was starting to draw these urban views, I started realizing what a pig this thing is on the street. I mean, everything else is just so small in scale, and the necessary floor-to-floor heights to bring off these functions seem to be large in context with the rest of the place. But since this is supposed to be a serviceable building for the future, I kind of think that these issues may or may not, may not be as big a deal as they now seem. I have a 70-foot height limit here marked on this perspective. And if you see these as gone, and you see a new street wall back where it's supposed to be, which is where the urban planner told me it was going to be in 20 years, going to move that street wall back, right? It starts to make sense. And the new technology of the panels and the concrete frame, maybe there's a hope that the new integration will happen at that level instead of trying to bring it down to this small level. This is a view walking down the laneway, looking at the edge of this thing in the back lane. I kind of thought that one of the reasons besides trying to get interesting functions back here, setting back this 5 feet was trying to get balconies and try and have a sense of opening of the lane at the end, and so you could see better, all the stuff that I've got going on back there. And so you can see the interpenetration down the space through the front of the building, and the double row of trees, which is a pretty strong element. Here's looking down the lane the other way at the concrete pylons going up the back, bracing the building at the back. And this is my little sketch of the vision, the Yaletown vision. They have 2 towers per block and 70-foot street walls. Well, I just drew 2 towers per block and 70-foot street walls, and it looks pretty Orwellian, It's a pretty amazing city idea, the way it's supposed to be extruded. I still have a certain problem with believability in all this, but when you go to the planning department, they just got it all mapped out, which land they're appropriating, and it seems like it's almost already happened. And there's your tower. So I think that's the end of my project. I just want to look at this Jersey's issue about the I got a couple of seconds about this partie diagram. So I thought I'd cook this partie diagram. I had a really sense of the overallness of it all, but he wanted a diagram, so I thought I better get to work, make a diagram. And I like drawing on the board anyway. So I drew the project, and I started thinking about my ideas about opening to the corner and about this being hard, static, and temporal, solid, liquid, order, drift, all these issues, and I sort of came down to, right away I thought of this diagram, which was a square that's been rotated and drifted out of skew, like you'd get in any kind of waterfront development where things have a tendency to come to square. I thought that was probably a good logo for the project. If you look at the two together, you might see the facade of the project and see the two, the grid behind it, the hard grid of the institution and the softer grid of the city, kind of interpenetrating in that function zone. And then down here I thought, well, this is even more interesting because you have this line between the two, which is a fault line, going back to the earthquake example, a fault line between the two worlds, and where they meet, all kinds of interesting collisions happen. Like if you look at the reflected ceiling plan, put it dotted in, where the beams connect with the beam along this wall, it's really interesting because sometimes they end up being over a wall and sometimes they end up being over space, and that's the point where the two logics meet. That's probably one of the more interesting points. Also the point where all the circulation is. So I thought in that way, as a partie, it worked pretty well, but there was a fault line and 2 sides with different qualities. And that's basically all the time we got. Thank you.
Okay, interesting time to make comments, but I have sort of looking at the plans, I am sort of amazed at how modest amount of space you have in this building. These are basically ground floor, which will give back to the city and could use as display. But in a conventional sense, there's only 1 floor to give display space. You invented narrative to justify other functions. Administration takes on very much of display in this floor area, which is, if anything, we hope that couldn't you consider 2 floors, of display? Or why you only considering one? I know you're justifying it, putting the housing on a roof and all this, but yes, perhaps. But this is all kind of secondary layer of action. First one is what contemporary and architecture. Something else having to drive this project. I don't quite understand where that came from.
Good point. I was thinking of pulling it down myself and tossing one of those floors.
Because I think the issue of display of the object is extremely exciting, and I think you addressed it with some background, but now you can visualize it or simulate it or be the author of the first exhibit or fragment of the exhibit, test it, and you try to make us bring the object. You know what I mean?
Well, I have one for you, but I don't know if you have time for it.
Okay,
It's pretty quick now.
that's my main comment, basically. The rest of the project development, I'm not sure. Very, very, very fast. Great. It's hard work. How much it takes. And I'm sorry to do this because I have to go with some service when I have one more thing. And I perhaps would like to sort of step back from this project a little bit and return to it in conversation with you. But you yourself, I'd like you can step back and abstract it a little bit because there's so much. Your illustration technique is, by making displacing the objects inside of those rooms, furniture, and it gets tattooed a little bit. It's an important step maybe to take in order to verify that things work. But maybe you can now get the button and move all the furniture out a little bit, and to think about the floor and about space and about skin, a little bit more, and just bring this kind of clarity of programs, which I think is the way to work. And I'm dying to see this view, I'd like to see this view perceptually and experience it. Three-dimensional space or whatever.
Boolean.
Yeah, right.
A thought came to mind. I'm sorry I was late, but I think I'm still exhausted from speaking the presentation.
No kidding.
One thing that really surprised me was the residential and the office and everything in there. Then all of a sudden it didn't surprise me at all. And I suddenly thought that maybe what you mean about the contemporary condition of architecture is that that's what we're trying to do. It clicked when you used the word suburban or something.
Really?
It's like the 4th floor is the suburbs of this project.
Yeah.
I thought, right, okay, that's an interesting notion that you set up the whole thing, because I sort of arrived, I guess, if anything, expecting to see some big void with this multi-story exhibition space. That's what this is. Whereas you've got this one space, because I guess the ground floor is, I got in on a bit about the park or whatever, but the 2nd floor was the exhibit space.
It's the museum. That interior.
It's the museum.
Wide
And so
wall.
what happens is people live and have their offices or whatever in the museum. It's almost like the museum's being converted to residential and office, because that's what I took to be part of the idea.
Yeah. This is given to the city. It's a nice move, and this is the museum. The rest of it are not the other guys.
Right, there's a conference on the 3rd floor.
But it's like having a bathroom in a house, which is the place where you go to sing, but you don't have the whole house as a bathroom. But you go in there and you have great sing-songs in your bathroom. It can play out. This is one of the pluses and one of the problems of this whole thing. You can spin it any which way because the parameters are set so loose. A bit of showmanship and so on, and it's like it's home free on a very trite level. So the thing is, you probably are going to want to anchor everything down somewhat, because you can play it. There are, so you've got 2 takes on the same game.
Yeah.
Well,
I would think that without dramatic changes to the narrative and to the whole project, I would put two layers of this banking with distinctly exhibitionary the meeting spaces and squeeze administration, and you have both, one meeting room and one place for two guys with a typewriter to run this small building, whatever they're running there. And then the roof, okay, well, this is some other kind of action, which is derived by sort of urban larger narrative, and maybe it makes sense to build houses.
You say squeeze the office, because the office is nasty.
No. And then conferences are kind of nasty too.
The
You want a place
conferences
to
are?
meet around the table. People don't meet like this anymore.
Yeah.
They have no time. We're going, man. We're going. It's over. We do.
I was thinking that acoustic privacy,
video phones,
the number one thing that's ignored in these things was really important. People wanted to talk without hearing everything else.
What have we hear from?
I wanted to mostly hear what these.
I agree that this seems awfully small, and I'm just looking here. Here's some really interesting possibilities of cross views and distance viewing. You were at one time talking about big architectural elements,
Right.
etc. And it seems to me that you're not. There's an opportunity that's not being used. So that was looking at that. That's what it seemed to me. This is in your narrative about the Benjamin thing. That seemed there was an opportunity there that was just kind of, I don't know, lost, or maybe that can be worked on here. And
This is underground first.
yeah, but where's the elevator? Is this
Okay,
it?
the elevator's in the center and back right here.
But and then how do you get? If you've got big objects, your storage, how do
Okay,
you
you
get
take
there?
it through here. Right through here. Double door. These are the big object storage, these are small object storage. Change if you want. But usually I would drag them through the big space.
Let me tell you what Bill Gates has in his house. He, over the last 2 years, he builds a house which is, I can't remember how many, 30, no, it's more than some millions and millions of dollars house, right? And it's almost finished. He bought rights to a number of paintings across the world to display digitally. He has screens. The house is several pavilions, and some connected, I think, through underground galleries. And he displays those objects on those digital screens. He has originals basically at home. And now he's probably going to sell them to all of us pretty soon, and we have screens like this at home. So, issue of display and issue of object, real object, and the display, especially since we're talking about some kind of architectural representation here. It's significant, this thing, You don't have to know that how to do that, but you have to allow for it. I mentioned Sherry's point about big flat space from which you can want to see the front on one-to-one. You want to see Rosette of Notre Dame, because you never get to it because it's always there, But here you can almost touch it.
The closer you get, the farther it gets. Isn't that the Benjamin problem? No authenticity in simulation, so you can be within kissing distance of this window. You'll never touch it. It's going to be ungraspable, and that's basically what's happening here too. These two neighbors.
Well, yeah, but I think this is you're operating on a different set of objects.
Is that all you want?
Yeah,
You're getting a boost from me, Sherry, for your runoff?
No, I mean, that
you're
was.
my best critic, you know that.
That was just, to me, just seemed such a lost opportunity, given what you said before.
What could I do though? I mean, it's
Well,
2 living room space which are a little bit depth.
But you can do that here,
Yeah.
You play this
Yeah.
game here.
Oh, you get it all the way up and down. Wow.
But then
No,
you
but
feel
don't.
like
But this doesn't play. That's
No.
one room, right?
That's one
yeah.
room.
So
But this room certainly could be one room.
yeah, and as you said, you don't need all that admin.
And this experience of going around the void, this collective thing which brings us together, this atrium, kind of noble space which is twisted, of course, but it is collective. I mean, you're giving to some bunch of secretaries and guys who have meetings, You don't.
Well,
I
I mean, we're wrong with that.
don't think the residential. I mean, you are talking about an institution, and you
That's
want to
right.
define it. And somehow the residential seems almost of another layering to
So
me.
you are in a new residential area. This is a residential area. They
I'm just
give you
saying
bonus points for having any kind of housing.
Well,
in the
maybe it'll
building.
be more convincing if there's more museum space, but at the moment it seems only one equal. There's no more museum space than there is residential.
Okay, so we should want to push the museum display space. I think everybody thinks that way. Except for you.
I have.
Okay, so
Try to talk to me, babe, but
Okay,
I think we have to have more chats.
You will, because I'm really looking forward to doing an institutional angle testing. We want stuff like that.
I'm sorry for that.
It's sort of there, but it's not really.
really gelling yet.
What did they do?
It will.
The ground floor was good.
I didn't get a jacket today, but I got something.
Okay, and you're actually going to give me what I need. Okay. Well,
I show up late and everyone rushes out. I mean,
Oh, sorry,
You can even have all
go.
yeah.
I didn't.
So I guess
My
I'll
son
see
is
everybody in a month or
Music
something.
recital I have to take, and it's one of those parental obligations.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it starts.
It's okay. It's short is better.
No, but no, I think it's solid work, and I'm very happy the way you're moving along. And George would Graham is to say, and now we'll get together,
We have to get together
and
soon.
and we have a chat again. Okay, I would like to
really
reflect.
nail the lid on this thing, get rid of the crap, bring in the good stuff, because I want to start producing the end objects now. I only got so long, and I don't want to rush
I
it.
want you back in a machine a little bit.
Yes, this is
Do
the
some
time
juju,
to
you know.
do
because-
those little bullets.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry.
and you should have, go with Jersey to the lab, instead of hanging with me. See all these toys and all these simulated
Yeah.
objects.
Well,
Maybe I should take
next
over.
presentation in lab, right?
Maybe if he has time tonight, I can take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
That would be good.
there's nothing to show, but room is there.
Oh, we'll play. We'll make something.
Yeah,
We'll make an atrium.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can do it. You can do it.
Okay.
Okay. See you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you soon.
Holy cow, it's done already. I had this whole song and dance slides and research, and I had deconstructivist sculptors, and I had installation people, and that. So this is the
Mostly you're just having fun.
I'm having a lot of fun actually, but I'm seeing how fast I can innovate something at high risk, and I'm failing. And I'm failing. I don't usually do let myself do this. I'm kind of screwing up, sometimes. But then for every time I screw up, I have this strange kind of forward motion.
Well, I mean, some of it's about make a place and the activity will sort out into it. Like my feeling about here, where I clicked into the suburban thing is, suppose this has gotten built at some time now or in the future, and now someone's trying to fit this into there. And that's what a gesture like this bloody skew and everything does. It's like life is simple and then it shifts. Right? And so I got this goddamn skew thing in this place. Tell you what, I want a place to live. Tell you what, I need to go to a meeting. Tell you what, I gotta put out a memo or do the accounts receivable. And so these things happen in here. And I perversely find it quite interesting the fact it's hardly an exhibit space. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's valid to carry on through there.
I originally saw this thing as a two-story adventure.
Yeah.
With like a story of grade with it's open or not open, and an upper one and nothing more. Like a couple of floors, some models, maybe a few installations.
Yeah, but you see, part of what it says to me is in the contemporary thing, you have all these functions. These are the gathering. So that's the school assembly hall. This is Daddy's office. Mommy's office. Because life is still sexist like that, right?
Yeah, well.
Here's the house in the suburbs. But this fabulous thing of they both got this thing, but because this guy's music doesn't quite match that over there, these are always closed. There's always that possibility of non-communication.
But there's no partition there. And that's probably the first thing that would get built in a real project.
Oh yeah, oh sure, of course.
And it would just go, oh, God.
Of course. So it's back to the one thing I have to hang this project on is the risk stability paradigm.
Yeah.
Because that's what your diagram again is about. Fault lines and the million-year building and the 10-second facade.
Yes. Well, actually, that's probably pretty solid. These things are adventures, and to a certain extent, they're titillating, especially this stuff.
But it's almost like, well, what can I do if someone wanted to move there? It's like this is literally, these are 5 or 6 or 8 lots on a street. And someone come along and wanted an office, and built that. Someone come along and wanted a house, and built that. But ran out of funds or something, so had to make it a duplex.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so the courtyard, you know, here's the mountaintop that you say no one goes to. Unless, of course, like I live in a townhouse and we have a roof deck, and if you build a trellis up there and put loads of plants, that's where you want to be all the
That's
time.
where you want to be, but who'd ever call me up there, right?
Depends. Yeah, because it's not inside here. I have to go outside of this place into another realm and up. So that's what I started to see, was these are actually adjacent to one another. They just happen to be stacked.
Yes, there's no
They happen not to line up.
authenticity to
And
it.
then when you said that when you put it into section, you have all these discrete, totally different worlds, everything different going on. You stick it in here and you say, well, really, it's just a bunch of structure and stuff, and this happens to be here, but it could be here, and that happens to be there, but it could be there. And then you're then going to be left with the naked diagram of
Yes,
a shift through there
That's right.
and some voids.
that's exactly where I went.
So it comes back to being like the Georgian townhouse.
The Georgian townhouse, huh?
Well, it's like this is what happens on every floor. It could be this, or it could be this,
Oh, right.
or it could be that. Because this could be above grade, and you blank out the windows. You know what I mean? The condition of everything that could be something else. Here are all the things that you want, and that's just sort of drifting in and out of the wrap, or more getting notions on the wrap, saying, oh, I got to hang this onto something. It's just a great sort of bath of notions and ideas and stuff. So you just lie there and enjoy it. And you can say, no, let's see what comes to mind. And anyway, that's what came to mind. But I'm in the minority position here because you've got to do a real exhibit.
Yeah, well, I combine that whole thing, really something to fight. Sure. I mean, this whole sense that, well, it's a museum, isn't it? Kind of rational approach. Like, well, it starts like this, right? Let's see, I'll do a graph project. What shall I do? Should I do a museum or school? You know, like that. And who cares where it is, what technology it is, what the situation's like? You end up starting with a program, and then you have a problem.
Yeah, but you know what happened is
And then-
we run out of funding
Yeah.
to run the museum,
Right.
so we're going to have to convert this into housing.
That's right. Exactly.
That's what I'm reading into it.
I'm reading like
And,
entrepreneurial approach.
and this is bullshit. We just can't, use this stuff. There's not enough people coming through here, and we can't rent out the lounge. So
Yeah.
we'll do something with it.
And this hole sucks. Why don't we just fill it in?
Yeah.
And that
That's right.
certainly is a doable thing.
And why the fuck did they fill that hole in?
Or yeah, exactly.
Let's take it out.
That's probably a lot harder. I don't know. But those things all approach. I mean, when you're really dealing with a contemporary world and have any experience in architecture knows, it really confronts you with permanence and like a fit of everything. It's incredibly difficult.
Or making everything fit. I mean, the tape I got in the car right now, and the Cohen stuff, and there's a crack in everything.
Yes.
That's how the light gets in. It's like suddenly instead of leaking, there's a crack in everything. Oh yes, crack. Decay, things falling out. Oh, that's how the light gets in.
That's it.
It's the neat part.
Yes, and that's the crack. I mean, that's the really liberating thing. You look at this Metacarcai and you see right through one room, through another room, and out to the street.
Well, yeah,
It's like-
because I would have trouble. Because I don't like skews. I don't like anything that isn't totally regular until it has to move.
Yes, it's got to be.
And so the skew arrives. If the skew arrives first, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
I'm a lover of life, so I can get, I'll let myself get suckered in anything that I enjoy, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But the one thing that I realized that how the layering can work is because it's skewed. If this was the perfect
Oh God.
atrium,
Yeah.
right? It would not. Then this would only be a story, and it would be pick which one are you doing.
The only identity.
So I realized
it's just arbitrary.
Yeah.
You know?
So by being arbitrary and at variance with itself, it actually creates the logic that allows different things to be there because you can't quite see them. You can't quite perceive them the same in different ways. You can't repeat this floor plan down here because it's going to be 2 feet further over or something.
That's not big enough for us. Just
That's perfect.
So, why have you got Yaletown?
Well,
Well,
that's
because they
true.
didn't do the proper thing and bulldoze it in the 60s, when it could have just vanished, right?
That's right.
Nice parking lots and had Costco and IKEA and all that stuff.
So what's wrong with this picture? It's just
Well, that's the
not very solid ground.
no. There's a problem. So I said my thought is the reverse one. Defending the fact that there's a museum with hardly any museum.
I like that idea though.
I don't know. That's why I realized everyone's going to go, and I thought, geez, that's my impression. I better say it.
See, this thing has this necessary part of it. It's a grad project. You give it a title, it's got to look like that title, and you're stuck with that. That's the logic of it. Now, if I made a museum in contemporary architecture within a museum, I thought that would be interesting, and have all these other functions that grew in there because they had to. But that would be interesting. But maybe I'm trying too hard. I mean, you can only detour so much meaning, and then you end up
That's right.
with a revolution, and you don't want that, right? Maybe I should take out an office floor, make it an exhibition space, like this lounge thing, which I kind of thought was really interesting. It's like a truth, having little private areas, this big surveillance space, right? I want to go somewhere where I can be alone and kind of like talk with somebody about all these great things, but I keep being told to shut up, by this guard. It's awful. So I thought this
So
would be.
why have you put a guard in there?
Well, there's usually always guard. It's still an institution. Don't touch the objects. All this crap. There's got to be somebody to watch you.
So that's what can get people upset. It's an institution.
Yes.
Someone has to live there, or someone gets to live there.
And even you can.
Or here's a fabulous space, but it's the secretary or whatever who gets to see it. That's undemocratic.
Oh, the democratic.
I know, very
Well, she gets to see it, but remember, she can't possess anything. It's just looks. I mean, the one who really owns the space is the one. I don't know who actually
Yeah.
owns it, but
So this, the scenario I see is taking this and like renovating it. It's almost like I think we got around a similar point last time, because it's kind of like it's a found object and these things have happened to it. So it's like that's the director's space off of this and that. This is very, very hierarchical and known from the past. But actually, that's a great view from there, looking out here. So actually, now that I'm director here, I want to have my office here.
you'd be innovative.
Right.
I always want the corner.
That's right. That's right.
You get stuff in between them and the elevator. Stop people.
Oh yeah, that's right. And how would this place?
How would it work with
Handle
the
it.
swap that?
Yeah.
Take the computer core, put it over here, put the office over there. Look, you can make anything work, but it's just there's less space for this. The real equation goes this way. Right? This is the circle one. Core, corridor, function. That's the solid piece. This direction. You can do anything you want this way now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's why this happened.
So yeah, you can do anything. You can even make exhibit space out of any other floor. I mean, what I'm getting at is you got to keep this contemporary.
Yes.
This is designed already and it's been occupied already, and now something's changed already. In fact, some people have come along and they want to lease this space for exhibit. You just heard them. The tenants were right.
That's the best.
We're
That's
right
the
here.
best place for an exhibit. In the lounge, people are feeling good.
Yeah.
Chatting with their friends. You can actually talk in there. I never had my exhibit in there. To tell you the truth.
Yeah. So what it is part of it is this is all up and running
Yes.
because that was the bonus and this was the this and that was the sugar daddy and so on and Cineplex and that's how the stuff came.
Yes.
And that kitchen was a requirement in the zoning, and Christ knows why it's there, because no one will ever cook anymore, but we built one, right? Now someone's come in and said, yeah, I want to lease some space up here for an exhibit, or I want some space for the exhibit, and you said, fine, pay me. And they say, oh, I don't have very much money, So, okay, you can just, if you move the chairs and tables in here, you can have an exhibit in there. And you probably have to put a sign outside the elevator saying turn left to the exhibit, and set a thing on the door to say exhibit. Oh, no, I want more than that. Oh, okay, well, we can actually repaint the walls, or we can do this, or we can do that, right? All the way down to blowing all of the thing away, filling in the floor, and doing that. It's like how much of a shift?
Yeah.
Do you want to? It's like take your thing. It's built, right? That's where I'm coming from. Because that's the only take I could really get on the last experience. You were going to do something, not meaning for it to be it, and accidentally it got built, right? Made real. Goddamn columns in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Oh,
Right in the middle of your reception area.
I wish I should have realized that when he was placing the rebar.
Good luck, right?
But so what you created is that. That is that. And now life wants to do that to it,
Very much.
you know. And that's anyway, that's what I got from your rap.
Well, I think you got it. Glad I communicated at least something to someone. When I'm up here blabbing, I don't know what they're getting, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I got 4 people in the room, they're coming in 4 different directions.
Oh,
I'm address them
absolutely.
all at the same time. I got Deborah Wine over there, institutional expert, Sherry McKay, historian. You got Jersey and his whole simulation angle. And I've got you and your whole experience, which I don't actually know you as well as the others.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but there's the unknown, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, God, I gotta address this. Think of something, say things. And it's interesting when you actually do blab that much. But yeah, it's what I always thought was really funny was how placemaking happens in a city against the authority of planners. Like you ever see the famous love scene, you know, Sid and Nancy next to the garbage.
I still haven't seen something that.
Okay, this is the love scene next to the city garbage can. That's ultimate romance. That really is, because guess what I do with my garbage day? That's it.
Yeah.
And it's totally visible from everywhere. As a matter of fact, it's the end of the visual axis. And I thought, I had such a problem with it. I have diagrams where I put in a little enclosure and I kind of switched it this way and couldn't get it around the pole. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this thing? I'm going to hide it. And I realized, I'm an idiot. Just take it all away and it's just standing there and you just have to deal with it. Okay, maybe you do put a wall in front of it. That's your problem. Okay, I don't have to deal with it because I've given absolutely everything to it. I mean, you can get to it, you can remove it, you can even throw things out your window, down the stairwell, and it just goes right in. Okay? You don't have to worry about it. Because garbage is the most important thing in the 90s, right? I mean, don't forget, things come through the front door, people see them, and they get thrown out, and then they're gone. It's a machine. I first thought of having this happen, which was like, you know, like a chute or a winch that can you take things in or you throw things out, kind of like this whole contraption back there. And I thought, well, I probably bummed the hell out of sliding, but it was a good idea. Just one of 100 little ideas, but it did work in a really good way to offset a lot of good things happen, like the grid happened well, and all this crap happened well, and it's like they won with the zoning, so I thought, yeah, it's a winner. But the thing that really got me was this arbitrary move, how actual places are made within a city where there is no sense of having any authenticity being there. Like, how do you decorate something and give it a certain measure?
Yeah.
You know,
That's.
nobody believes it. Nobody believes you're not. You know, you're supposed to. This is Lover's Lane. You know, coming down Lover's Lane, you're supposed to do something at Lover's Lane. You can't because it's Lover's Lane. And, you know, performance anxiety. But next to the garbage can, you can do anything.
That's right.
You know, because nobody's watching you, man. You know, you've got freedom there. So I don't know. Like, this struck me. But number one, you're not supposed to do this in school. It's stupid. Okay, it's illegal.
Yeah.
People see me go, what the hell is that skew? And you heard Jersey say at the beginning.
Yeah.
So there was an instant clue. Jersey, you know, a great professor is also one of the most autocratic people we've ever met. Okay, and he'll give me more clues by telling me what not to do that I can actually do. And then he'll smile and go, well, all right, we'll deal with that. But like, no one wants to deal with this stupid thing, okay? Because it's just so painful. That's not an idea. The reason why it's painful is because it's so real. It's the only way of getting light within the facade that isn't already known. And if I was to do a facade with a straight one, it would start looking like, you know, bonds too. The curtain wall going up this side. I mean, this looks a lot like a lot of facades you see on campus.
there's nothing really that different about it. The only two things different about it is the fact that this goes sideways like that, and this whole thing hinges out, cranks out at an angle. That's it. I mean, there's really nothing very contemporary about it. I mean, how could you be? It's precast panels, concrete slab, and some curtain wall. Permutations that have been already gone through 1,000 times. The only thing really nutty is the earthquake bracing. And we all know that's sort of semi-decorative, semi-functional. How do you make it contemporary? How do you make it? How do you say something with a drawing? It's gonna, people are going to look at it for 2 seconds and go, "That's a project," or that. I looked through a manual of last year's projects. These projects aren't projects. They're like quickies. And you go through and you see a project and you go, or yeah, I can see why they put that in. The best projects are projects where they have pictures of things that weren't architecture. Had interesting ideas from other areas and they were fertile, but after 2 pages of text you go, God, that's stupid. I still am trying to address the idea of making a grad project or making a competition or making a pitch really work in a scenario where you're really supposed to be very responsible and do a great job designing everything, like all these other doors and spaces and dimensions. We still got to make it work with what people in the room, they don't know where they're coming from. And I think that the way to do it is decoration, because they might be sold on a lot of these things. I think each one of them separately would be sold on something, some part of it. Like Sherry doesn't like this. I always thought the comments were that Sherry doesn't like this part, but you do, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And very strong reasons. And in Jersey, he thinks there should be less office space. In fact, most people do, but you don't. And
Well,
perfect.
yeah.
Consensus.
But I think this room should have a fireplace, but it doesn't. If it did, it'd be neat.
True.
I don't care what caused the fireplace to happen, but now it's here. Let's use it. Because I know about how arbitrary things happen.
You do? Okay.
I know of 2 very significant property lines in the city that occurred. One because I got pissed off. Well, both of them really because I got pissed off. They're now like forever and ever will mark this city. And they're like the skew. And one of them's a street, Kiefer Street, up in International Village, which was supposed to be well behaved and be parallel to Pender Street. And that's what the diagram was. And then you had to get over to the ART station. And we couldn't get the thing to fit in there that we wanted to have happen around that circle. So, and with trace and stuff being over, like, oh yeah, this is it. Almost. Oh yeah, let's do a clean one. Oh shit, no, in all the copies we'd moved the street or something had got skewed. So I said, fuck it. Let's just put it here. See who catches it,
Really?
We've got to get this thing submitted. So it's however many degrees off parallel. Just because I got pissed off one day. It works. The building fitted, and it wouldn't have fitted if it had been at a tighter angle.
Okay.
So that's like your skew. That's why I'm saying, like, I'm coming from experience. A gesture like you did there gets built. I never imagined that someone wouldn't come along later and say, oh, by the way, this should be parallel, and clean it all up. And later at bigger scale, we would have had to rethink, well, can you really get the tower in here? Whatever. No, it just stayed exactly where I put it that day. And it's built.
That's right. Right.
And there's other ones around that same site that came from the same thing. Like, I don't know, let's just put this boundary between this thing here and here.
Well, as a designer, which move would you make? I mean, I have my own ideas what I'm going to be doing. I'm always looking at what the other ideas are. What would you do, for instance, to really break it up and to really make it work? Besides, putting different labels on parts. The big design,
only floor, or the floor that immediately engages my interest is this one. In terms of doing something. In terms of this is all really weird, and I would tinker around with it and so on. But it's kind of like places either I've lived in or friends have lived in, and there's weird leftover moments in them that then become the neat things. The closet that's so big, I think in one apartment, that my friends were able to move the bed in there. Totally transformed
Oh, really?
this apartment they had, because they actually took down a wall between two closets and made a fabulous bedroom, and totally.
It's a great idea. I love rentals like that.
Yeah, so it was
All
like,
the space we found.
yeah.
Where?
And also what they did is, made the bed just a bit higher, so that all the stories they lost, they found underneath the bed anyway, on dollies that pulled out. So it's like, I see that's built, but it's here. Here I don't get it as a space or place. I probably clear all the books out and furniture out and so on. Maybe it stays like that.
So you think this is an interesting.
It's
You don't like
interesting
the
because it's immediately unsatisfying in a different way to the way that the other ones are. Like, none of this is resolved or satisfying totally, but it's like, I could see things to do in here. I could see things about tinkering
Oh, with
and
design.
engaging
And
in
this
it.
was
Yeah,
resolved.
it's too finalized, but it's also too vague. I mean, it doesn't.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Like it's finished, but it hasn't.
I don't really want to go there.
Really?
Right? I mean, I sort of get some of it, but whereas
Yeah.
here it's kind of weird and things are disproportional, whatever, and this whole passage through here. So it's like, I can relate to that. This is so totally weird. All this circulation. So I have no trouble. That's just crazy. It's kind of neat. Yeah.
There's a closed computer room that have each computer lines over the top, so there's actually structure over the top carrying lines down to the offices. The only thing that sets an office is square.
Mhm.
And they go two meters.
Mhm.
Of offices, and everybody talks to each other with noise, right? You almost want to get rid of the partitions, but I went on a tour of this social housing thing, or social office thing, and it was like, we want privacy, we want our partitions, we want our little space, we don't care what it is. Give them an office. These people are very important people. Jersey's full of shit, People make museums. It's the staff. It's people who run things, who have ideas. And I think they're the most important part of the museum. Keeping the communication open and giving those places to happen are important.
Yeah, but I mean, it's maybe like, I don't know, that isn't there, and that's the meeting room. See, that, and
Okay, I see what you mean. Actually, I had that in the beginning. I had a meeting with the center that was
then we'll get into it. There's the architectural gestures that it's like, that's just architecture. Okay?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, here's the balcony. Therefore, a whole bunch of things are predicated on getting around to the balcony space that
It
wants
seems
to be there.
all this is this disease here of certainty is to do with this grid, the actual structural grid, because the things you've been pointing to are things that actually line up with the beams on a regular fashion. You never point to the things that don't derive from structure, that are sort of there programmatically. You always point to things that, line up with a column, go underneath a beam. I thought that was pretty slick. And or equidistant, around
Lining things up.
and all this grid on the surface, which impinges on behind it. And I don't think that's working right. That's not interesting. It is interesting to do this, and even more interesting to when you really go.
Well, it's interesting because it's sort of irrelevant what this is. It just is.
This is not your
Whereas
office.
this is trying to be meaningful and.
I was actually thinking exterior, I think,
Mhm.
because the whole atrium concept was getting lost when you used to do this. Like it's an office, people look in.
Well, what is an atrium concept?
You see between things, between floors. You look down, you're down there.
Is that what an atrium concept is?
That's what I always thought was you go peek.
I thought it was just standing at the bottom of it.
Yeah. You didn't get to look up. People look down to you.
So it doesn't actually go all the way down. It goes from here.
Here, it's sort of like a little transparent piece of more. Last light.
Well, that's why initially I read that as a bridge between
Yeah, well,
two
it's just on the
exhibit
floor.
space
It's
given.
just on the floor. It's just a trace of what's above in the floor. I just thought it was a transparent floor. Some sort of, that doesn't have to see through as long as it's got light. At least underneath you can see it.
Oh, that changes things. That's a shame.
Really?
Yeah.
Not a good thing?
Not for me.
Not for you? Why?
Because part of this whole thing is about access, separation. And there's no chance, well, there's no real chance to play that game here.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
I like the idea of this being landscape and paving, everything just runs in.
Well, I just thought of
And
that.
it's like, you want the door, I saw these door type things here, you know, and I'm sure they're on some of the, I just assumed that this was somehow sort of like that. Like, today, the building is closed.
Okay.
Today,
The garage door.
yeah, the building is, well, but if it's pivoting or whatever, the building can be this shape because of the way the
Well, that's
the
a
doors are open.
Dino Rapanos move.
Is it?
Do you know?
Yeah. You still around?
Oh yeah, he's still around kicking us. He believes in movable architecture, and I did it too with him, and we did all kinds of wonky things like buildings on wheels, all kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
And I discovered a real taste for that because I thought it was a cop out. I mean, if you're gonna build something, build it. If you don't like it, move it. But making it movable seems crazy if nobody ever moves it, because we all know.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that.
So come on,
So
it's too fucking large. That's what they have doors for. They're small, you can move them. But when they get bigger, well, it becomes a wall, and
okay.
we don't move those things. And the machines never work, and nobody thinks to press a button because it's not a convention. You know?
Yeah, okay. But you got this notion that you can see right through and see the garbage and see right through here, but I can't come in here and see right through to the, I don't mind anyway, but it stops off at some point.
Well,
Down the way.
if the display space is going to creep up here, then I could maybe do that. But how would I address that? Like, to tell you the truth, I kind of thought at first I was being a little scary because the only way you can really get in up here is by going up Golden Door there. That's going to be the main stair. And I first thought, well, I'm blowing a convention. I don't have the stair. You know, that stair.
Mm-hmm.
The museum. There you go, the processional stair up to the ribbon. And I kind of like
elevator.
you have the elevator, which is probably what people would use. And I thought of it as a glass elevator with, open top, the whole idea of not having a closed elevator. Actually, I saw it as an industrial elevator. You know, the kind of shit like this.
Right.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
You actually stand on top of it when you go across. And when you're inside, you're not in a little box. It's actually
I
really
like
open.
those.
I never feel claustrophobic in those.
Oh, those are great.
Okay.
They had one in our office in Mainland Street.
Well, that's what I thought the elevator. I mean, it's, here's an example of the doors that go up and down. You just walk in, and it's great for moving things. I don't know, maybe it's not as fast as the other little door elevators, but I thought it's a lot more serviceable, especially for a museum. Hauls big shit around. So this would be the connection, at least in terms of light coming from the top. But as for poking a hole in here, well, then you have to actually close it. You know, I mean, is this really going to be a visual thing that goes up and through? You'd have to well, you don't want to step on it, right? That gets dirty. It would have to be up here or down here, like sagging. Like Hong Kong Bank. You know what I mean? That sagging window thing, and then you want to get shit on your pillow and throw it around there. Blah, 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 blah. In terms of servicing a sagging frame that carries windows and things in it. That's what this guy's
switch goes from horizontal to vertical. Because this is all.
It can be as simple as opening, like an opening in that slot, so that when you're in here, you perceive through the shadow that there's something up there. Like it doesn't have to be the whole slot. If it's a slot back there, when you're standing here, you would perceive that second floor. You read a slot. What are these slots here? That you would read one. Well, it's like putting a slot right there.
Well, that's what we're looking at. That's what that is.
So that's the
That's glass floor. Oh.
yeah. Okay, so that saves you having to put railings and stuff.
Well, yeah, put a railing on it. It's not very much left of this display wall and the whole thing. You have this stupid railing and all the gallery space. You want to do that to spare from here to here.
All right.
And then you have a reason for an opening.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be weird to have this little. What are you trying to do here, man? I mean, that's the most decorous thing I've ever seen. At least I can explain away the skew and the earthquake bracing, but having this crib in the middle of a is going to be so strange. You do it up here because it's got a wall next to it. Maybe I could put it against the wall and maybe blow away all that nice display space. So
Well,
there's actually a lot of problems I have with this part right here. This whole edge of the bottom. It's kind of a little scary because it just sort of hovers there and it's chopped off.
you had the image before where the wall had this double thickness to it, so you could perceive that you'd entered it at different spaces. You know, you could be, well, I'm inside the building because I'm inside the outside wall,
Oh yes.
or
Actually,
I'm not inside the building yet because I haven't passed through the line.
this thing here, my napkin sketch.
Yeah.
This is actually. It's good to come back to this stuff once in a while because that's when I was really coming. Before I got all fucked up with all side section garbage. This was. It's still happening, but it's struggling.
I'm in, but I'm not in, so you can choose to.
What's that interstitial space thing?
Yeah.
Between two worlds.
Yeah.
You see up and through, and you see potentials upstairs.
That's right.
And I thought that was really good, but I got detoured.
And then if you don't want to engage, you don't have to go there, which is maybe what's behind my thought about the slots between the two floors. It's like, well, I can notice that there's something up there that seems accessible. Therefore, because it seems to be a public space, I can climb in the elevator and I can go up there rather than going in a place and going up the elevator and opening, and it's like, it's a private party, and I go, oops, sorry, you know, didn't see the cues, you know, or else having someone saying, geez, I never ever thought of going to the second floor.
I think Emily Carr has this great space in the center of it. It's like an atrium.
Yeah.
Trees planted in it.
Yeah.
You really notice, hey, there's things above and
That's right.
a ray of light coming down.
Yeah.
You nice to have a glazed piece that comes down. The interior air. Or maybe it wouldn't have to be a stair. I want it to go.
Well,
But, because the stair would be huge. Maybe it doesn't have to be here. Maybe it can just go here.
yeah.
You know? Like in a different realm, I don't know. But, see, this happened because this used to be inside. This used to be an actual hall. But since I've exteriorized it, I had to glaze it. And
Yeah.
I screw up the function upstairs, so it's a lot of leftover things. Right?
Yeah.
But
But it's like in a warehouse or hay loft or an apple loft. What's really neat is the little hole that's in the floor
I know
that you hoist things through. And in those environments, you're completely oblivious to it until you nearly fall down it. But it's the connection. It's a very strong connection. It's better than a stair.
you want to put
Because you can immediately be in both places at once, which is what I thought this whole atrium overlook is all about. When I, particularly on this one, because it's the outward leaning way, when I lean on that rail, I'm in all of these spaces that I can see. And then I turn around, sit down, and I'm not anymore. I'm in this one. which is exactly the same paradox, and that's why, in a certain level, I'm willing to take the residential, as a paradox, not as a paradigm for urban living, but as because when you're gone, and so your loud music isn't disturbing my new age something or other, or whatever is the opposite, then this is an expansive whole realm. It's like in any house when the kids come home, kind of thing. Suddenly the house shrinks.
Mr. Simpson says he's good at camp, and all of a sudden he's a new man. He starts going to bed with his wife all the time, and you see him there, and he's just, this is great, I can do anything I want. So it sort of occurs to me, why can't you have sex with your wife when your kids are home? Well, because they're home. I mean, it's like different.
Yeah.
And I just went, this is just so strange. That somebody can be in another room and not bug you, but bug you.
Oh yeah.
I live alone, though. But yeah,
Well,
I sense that occupation is.
I've spent a lot of energy in overcoming that issue.
Well, you have. Wow.
Well, sure. But I mean, from the same point of view. Like we said, just because everyone else is in the house, that does not change what we're going to do. It does, but it doesn't. But it's interesting because even when it doesn't, it does. I mean, just reasonable people. And it's midnight, and it's a warm night. You just would kind of turn down your TV or stereo if you had the doors open. If you're a reasonable person, you just sort of do that because, hell, I don't know, you probably.
I don't want to do that, though.
No, I don't really, because I'm actually hyper and wide awake.
You wish you were in the country somewhere. We could do anything you wanted without having to think about anybody else.
Or in the corner where it's sufficiently remote. In my concrete high-rise apartment.
That's
Where I can blast out into the night, into the street, because I'm not bugging you, who I know, who's next door to me. It's the strangers that are out there, and it's part of the whole ambient.
Well, I like the residential on the roof. I'm glad you backed me up on my partition shit, because I was really pissing around in there. Especially when I started opening up the whole middle. Thinking, great corridor. The kids could do a circuit. The kids are in there. A circuit, even though the kitchen was trying to get a dining thing happening. But this was just murder. I mean, what is that room? I don't know. But it's sort of funky, because you think as an architect, you go, oh my god, what's up? People in here with their hang-ups, like people who actually aren't architects, and go, I love that room. Pisses me off when
If they have to move into it, they will.
they have
If they have to make a financial choice to move into it, they'll balk.
Oh, really? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's expensive. Always expensive.
And it's just like, all kinds of things don't quite fit. And that's the function of small spaces.
Truncated.
Yeah.
Truncated.
But most of us, when we don't have very much stuff, will move into like a London attic or a prison attic, with dormers and stuff everywhere. And eventually, you acquire the things that just fit right in there, or the chair that just goes perfect in this alcove.
Have you ever moved back? Gone backwards and had to give up on your space?
Not really that I noticed it.
You never lived with them.
Yeah.
In 1991, I got laid off BBB. I gave up my one-bedroom apartment in Parkdale for a one-room arrangement above the store on Queen West. I took all my stuff and gave it to my girlfriend. Moving out of her house to a big house to take it from the one in Kmart. I sweated for this damn furniture. I dreamed about it. I'm sick of it. I don't want this bloody shit anymore. You want it, you have it, please enjoy it. Please enjoy it. But I'm never going to buy anything again because I'm burnt. Okay? I'm burnt. And I put out a lot of energy to get this stuff together. And this thing of having a life, I have these fantasies about having dinner parties. Somebody at the Kmart. This big table for nothing. It's like it's a joke, right? So I'm going to live in rooms the rest of my life with anything that can fit in my Chevy Cavalier, and that's it. Okay? And that's have chairs, I don't have sofas, I don't have beds. I just lay in whatever's comfortable. And I got used to it. It gives you a little distortion sometimes, but anything's better than going backwards. Going backwards is murder. Giving on all that nice qualities like space, my studio,
Yeah, I never had my space.
By the way, I found your thesis. I found something that's really fun. I found your thesis. I didn't read it, but is it still around? Guess what it's called?
Vancouver, 1994.
That's right. That's sort of interesting. I haven't read it yet. I did read half a page. And it's probably the next five movies, right?
Yeah. So maybe not so much.
Really? Is that what you think we know about? I'm thinking, what am I looking at? Time passed.
Well, yeah, part of it was like, do you do a design exploration? Or do you reinvent the world? And I thought, well, I'll go out there and join. There's a lot more stuff.
These computers. This picture thing of Washington's dead. That's just those computers.
Less sweeping change than we saw in the 60s and 70s.
So you're making predictions for the future and everything that
Yeah.
how they can go.
Simon Vancouver will be 1994.